I don't know if I still count as part of this family anymore. Ever since my sister started looking at me with a mix of pity and embarrassment, I knew I was no longer big brother in Skylar's eyes. My name is Mason. I became paralyzed on the left side of my body after a car accident when I was 8. My parents died on the spot. I survived, but I was no longer whole. Skylar was only 5 back then. She clung to me all the time, gently touching my face and saying, "Big bro, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a doctor and fix you, okay?" But time changes everything. Skylar grew up, and her body bloomed like spring. Long golden hair flowing down her back, naturally plump lips that looked glossed even when bare, fair skin with a rosy glow, and curves that became more defined by the day. She no longer called me her super brother. Instead, she ignored me like I was some broken table misplaced in the living room. I still lived with Grandma and Skylar in a small 2-story wooden house on the outskirts of Pennsylvania. The place was so small, every footstep echoed through the walls. And every night, I'd lie in my room and hear Skylar's high heels clicking down the hall, all dolled up in tight dresses for parties. She'd often stand in front of the mirror right outside my room, checking herself out, chest out, hips swaying, occasionally letting out soft moans as she tried different TikTok poses. I'm no saint, I'm a man. I still have hormones, I still feel desire, but I'm also her brother. I hated myself every time she walked out of her room in a skin-tight crop top. I'd wheel away, cursing inside my head, "Don't you dare, Mason, that's Skylar." I remember one morning, I wheeled into the kitchen early. She had just finished showering, wrapped in nothing but a thin white towel. Her hair was wet, droplets still glistening on her skin. She gave me a flat smile. "You're not out yet? Thought you'd be asleep till noon." Then she walked past me, her jasmine perfume trailing behind like a whip. She bent down to open the fridge, the towel slipping slightly at the back, revealing the curve of her lower back. I swallowed hard and turned my chair around like I was fleeing. I thought, at the very least, she still saw me as family. But I was wrong. One night, I accidentally overheard her phone call with her boyfriend when I was wheeling down the hallway. She giggled. "My brother? He used to think he was a genius, but now he's just a burden. Sits in that wheelchair like a wax statue. Can't do anything. Just stares at me while I film." Her voice was sharp, cold. I froze like someone had just punched me in the gut. I didn't react. I didn't knock on her door. I didn't scream. I just went back to my room, drew the curtains, took off my shirt, and looked at my frail body in the mirror. My left arm had shriveled. My left leg curled unnaturally. I touched my face and muttered, "No wonder she's ashamed." I wasn't angry at her for changing. I was angry at myself for ever believing I was still loved. Skylar grew more popular. Her videos titled "Poor Girl Trying Her Best" flooded the internet. She wore backless dresses, sprawled across her bed, posing like she was exhausted from studying, lifting her legs to show off cleavage in the camera angle. The internet adored her, called her a baby angel, a phoenix rising from the ashes. Only I knew the ashes she rose from were me. I didn't resent her for using her body for views. That was her right. But she never mentioned who made her porridge when she cried over study stress. Me. Then came her 18th birthday. A week before, she suddenly became sweet. "Do you like chocolate or vanilla cake? Do you need new lotion?" Her eyes sparkled when she spoke. I thought, maybe she's changed? Maybe she finally sees me as her real brother again? I worked on her birthday gift, a bracelet that displayed her name in color-changing LED lights. One late night, she came home from a party. I was still awake to give it to her. She didn't take it. She just said quietly, "There's a party tomorrow. Lots of my friends are coming. Please don't come out. It'll be too crowded." I said nothing. Didn't argue. But deep down I thought, I'm your brother, Skylar. Even if it's crowded, you wouldn't push me away. Right? I was wrong. I wore the blue shirt she once said made me look smart. I wheeled to the living room door at 8 p.m. sharp, party start time. Then I wheeled inside. The house was packed, dim lights, overpowering perfume, and Skylar, standing in the center in a tight black backless dress, high slit nearly to her hip, chest lifted under the sheer fabric. She looked like a goddess from a Victoria's Secret ad. I didn't even have time to smile. She turned and screamed, "What the hell? Who told you to come out here?" Every eye in the room turned to me. I sat there in my wheelchair. still clutching the gift. The color-changing LED bracelet flashing Happy 18th Skylar like a bad joke in the middle of a luxury birthday bash. Skylar stood frozen, her lips bright red, eyes sharp as knives. She didn't even try to hide the disgust. Around her, the boys with slick-back hair, unbuttoned shirts, and wine glasses in hand started laughing like it was a comedy show. One of them yelled, "Is that part of the cosplay? Looks like a Halloween prop." Another squinted and took a photo. Lexi, Skylar's best friend, angled her phone for a story. "OMG, Skylar's party got a surprise guest." Then she cackled. I didn't speak. I just looked at Skylar. I thought watching her grow up, seeing every curve emerge under thin fabric, was painful enough. But no, the real pain was watching her turn her back on me and snap. "Please just go back to your room. I don't want to be embarrassed in front of my friends. You shouldn't be here." The room went quiet for a few seconds. Then came the laughter. Loud, cruel, like hammers on my chest. I swallowed. My eyes stayed fixed on her. She turned away, started swaying to the music again, like she was dancing me out of her world. As I turned my wheelchair around, someone flicked the back of my neck. A mocking voice, "Goodbye, old man." I rolled toward the door, but through the glass window I could still see her, Skylar, moving to the beat, her dress dipping low, her chest rising with every sway. She didn't look back, not once. That night, I didn't go back to my room. I rolled to the nearby park and sat under an old oak tree. The night was cold, the mist curling at my feet, but my chest felt colder. I took off my jacket, laid it across my lap, not to stay warm, but to remind myself I could still feel pain. I thought about all the times she used to sleep on my shoulder as a child, how I'd sit for hours listening to her talk about her first crush, some jack who later broke her heart. I used to wipe her tears, kiss her forehead when she was afraid of thunderstorms. And now, just because I'm in a wheelchair, because I'm not pretty enough for her Instagram story, I've been erased from her life. The next day, I packed my things. No goodbyes, no drama, just a few clothes, an old laptop, my phone charger, a mini programming kit, and a box of shattered memories. Skylar didn't say farewell. She told Grandma, "He needs a place that suits him better. It's too stifling for all of us here." I saw her standing on the stairs, wearing a satin sleep dress thin as mist, her chest barely hidden, eyes on her phone, lips pursed indifferently. That wasn't the sister I used to know. That was someone else. A girl who knew her body was beautiful and used it, but forgot the thing that used to make her shine was love. Grandma teared up, held my hand when the transport van from the recovery center arrived. "I'm sorry. I should have fought harder to keep you here." I smiled. "No, Grandma. This is good." As the van pulled away, I saw Skylar walk out into the yard in her sleepwear, nothing in her hands but her phone. The breeze lifted her hem slightly, revealing a small bruise on the inside of her thigh, probably from some bump at the party last night. I don't know why that detail stuck with me. Maybe it's just habit. I used to notice every scratch, every mosquito bite on her legs when she was a child. Now, I don't need to anymore. The care center sat in the suburbs. White walls, clean rooms, polite staff. They called me Mr. Mason. They asked what I wanted to eat when I wanted to sleep. They didn't laugh at me. They didn't pity me. But the place still felt cold, not from the air conditioning, but because I knew in my sister's eyes I had already been filed under things to be hidden away. I wasn't her brother. I was a design flaw in her life. And right then I made a promise. Even if I was no one in her eyes, I would become someone to the rest of the world. Starting with that shame, starting with that dress she wore, starting with the eyes that didn't look back even once. My first morning at the support center, I woke up in a room so white and spotless it felt almost sterile. The bed was positioned next to a window that overlooked a neatly trimmed lawn, but I didn't look outside. All I felt was the cold sheet beneath my back and the loneliness crawling into my chest. That morning, the head nurse came in to change my bandages. She looked to be in her mid-30s, chestnut brown hair, a graceful figure, and a naturally soft pink tint on her lips. As she bent down to adjust my back pillow, her blouse opened slightly, revealing the lace edge of her bra. The faint scent of lavender clung to her like a whisper, and I closed my eyes tight. "If you're tired, just say so," she said gently, her hand resting lightly on my chest to check my heartbeat. "You don't have to pretend to be okay." A chill ran down my spine. I couldn't remember the last time a woman touched me. It was before the accident, maybe even long before that. There were times I craved it, sure, but with a twisted arm and useless legs, who would desire someone like me? That's why the first time I looked at Skylar after she hit puberty, what I felt was buried deep in shame. She was too beautiful, too radiant, and I would always be the crippled shadow in the corner. At the center, I didn't befriend anyone. I kept everyone at a distance. Except one person kept coming by, Marie, the nurse. Marie wasn't just beautiful, she was kind, but not out of pity. One day, she sat next to me during reading time. She took my hand and placed it on an old paperback novel and whispered, "Sometimes you don't need to be whole to live. You just need to not lose yourself." I looked at her and immediately thought of Skylar. I remembered helping her rehearse for a dance recital when we were kids, spinning her in circles while I held her with the only working arm I had. Back then, I was her center of gravity. Now, Skylar was a TikTok star. I saw her in my mind, wearing that thin white tank top, brayless, swaying to music with that sideways smile and lips slightly parted, like she was teasing the whole world. She knew exactly how powerful her body was, and she knew exactly how men looked at her. I'd watched one of her videos filmed in her bedroom. The mirror reflected her bare thighs, her round ass in tiny athletic shorts. The camera paused at a lazy angle, sweat shimmering on her collarbone. I shouldn't have watched, but I couldn't look away, not because of lust, but because of pain. Because every inch of that smile, that body, used to belong to a little girl who once cried in my lap over a broken nail. Now she'd erased every memory of me. But I refused to drown in self-pity. I opened my laptop and started typing. The first words of my blog appeared. The first post title, "The Girl with Long Legs and Eyes Colder Than Ice." I didn't use real names, but I wrote the truth. I wrote about the day I tried walking with a support frame, only to fall in front of her and her girlfriends. She didn't run to help. She turned her back and pretended not to know me. I wrote about the night I heard her moaning her boyfriend's name through the paper-thin wall, how my body went stiff, not with rage, but with the crushing realization that I had been completely left behind. The blog spread like wildfire. Hundreds of messages poured in from people who'd been cast aside by their families. One said, "I have a sister just like yours. She's ashamed of me because I'm mute, even though I was the one who took care of her after our accident. Thank you for writing this, for all of us." One day, the blog reached over 10,000 views. I started getting emails from magazines focused on forgotten pain within families. Marie was the first to ask me, "Are you going to tell the whole story?" I stayed silent, because if I told everything, the whole world would know who Skylar really was. But I also knew Skylar wouldn't be scared, because in her mind, I was nothing more than background noise, a leftover limb, a burden, until an anonymous user created a video. They spliced together clips of Skylar's TikTok dances with quotes from my blog. The video went viral on Reddit, and within just 2 days, Skylar's name began trending on Twitter under the hashtag #shameful sister. Then the first message came through to my phone. Short, cold. "What did you do?" I didn't respond. I just typed a new post on the blog. My sister once used her body to stand out in a crowd, but she forgot. Memory doesn't need cleavage to turn heads. Skylar vanished from social media like a ghost after the scandal storm. No more cleavage spilling from tight dresses. No more seductive lip biting under LED lights. No more slow-motion hair flips and half-lidded glances into the camera that blurred the line between teasing and disdain. I thought she'd call. I'd prepared myself for it. But she didn't. Instead, I received a message from Lexi, the same girl who filmed me getting kicked out of Skylar's birthday party. I know I was awful back then too, but Skylar's falling apart. She lost every brand deal, lost all her friends. I'm sending this video not to beg for her, just so you'll understand what she's become. I opened the clip. Skylar, no makeup, messy hair, pale lips. She was wearing an oversized hoodie that swallowed her frame. No short skirts, no spotlight, just her and a trembling phone. "No one understands what it's like," she sobbed, "to live with someone who always needed me. All the attention was on him. I just wanted to be myself." She paused, eyes glossy with tears. Her voice dropped to a whisper, but I never meant to step on him to shine. I couldn't tell what I felt more of, pity, anger, or emptiness. That night, I sat with Marie in her office. She wore a form-fitting mocha dress, probably from an internal center event. A subtle hint of vanilla perfume clung to the air. When I told her about Skylar, Marie said nothing. Then she placed her hand on my thigh, on the side that still worked. Mason, sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about letting yourself stop bleeding. I turned away. I didn't want her to see the red in my eyes. The next morning, I received an email from a tech company. They'd read my blog, listen to my podcast, and wanted to collaborate on developing a digital skills app for people with disabilities. For the first time in years, I wasn't Skylar's paralyzed brother. I was me. I moved to Boston. In my new smart apartment, I framed just one old photo, me and Skylar when she was 7. I was carrying her on my back with one working arm. Her eyes sparkled like stars. That night, while adjusting interface elements on the app design, I got an email. From Skubjik. One last time I hesitated. Then I opened it. Mason, I know you probably don't want to read anything from me, but I have to write. I've lost everything. My reputation, my friends, even my belief in myself. But the biggest loss was you. You were the first to tell me I was beautiful when I hit puberty. You wiped my forehead when I had fevers at night, held a warm cloth to my stomach when I had cramps, ran your stiff fingers through my hair to help me sleep, even when you were aching from therapy. I pretended to forget all of that, but my body remembers. Every time I laid down to film, hiking my skirt up, panting softly to emote, I remembered your eyes quietly turning away from the doorway. I used to think you didn't see me, but it turns out you saw me more clearly than anyone ever did. If one day you feel like it, come to the first class I'm teaching. I enrolled in social work. I want to help those forgotten like I once forgot you. You don't have to reply. I just want you to know my body once lived because of you. Now my soul is trying to live for you. Skylar. I read it over and over again. I didn't know if it was a confession, a peace offering, or just smoke from an old flame. But I knew this. Skylar was no longer the girl who relied only on her body to survive. She was learning to touch others with her heart. I closed my laptop. That night, I recorded my next podcast episode. There was someone who once made me want to die because I was treated like dead weight. But that same person taught me, every time someone dares to bow their head and say, I was wrong, we all earn the right to stand. It hit 2 million listens in 1 week. Skylar stayed silent, but for the first time ever, that silence wasn't terrifying. The following month, I became the face of a campaign called Reframe the Body, a project helping people with disabilities access remote tech education. They took a photo of me, white shirt, seated in my wheelchair, minimalist backdrop, a beam of light highlighting the side of my face, and my one working hand tapping on a laptop. The image went viral. No one called me the guy in the wheelchair anymore. They called me the architect, the man who rebuilt his life from ashes. And Skylar, she disappeared from the spotlight. No stories, no new posts, no weepy barefaced selfies, no secondary scandals. Just once, I caught her name flash briefly in a viral TikTok titled Influencers Who Fell Apart Hiding Their Past. I didn't click it. I was busy living. One Friday afternoon, I was in the project office, guiding a group of volunteer students through building a voice-controlled navigation software. A knock came at the door. My assistant leaned in. There's a girl in the lobby. She says she's your sister. My body stiffened, then I nodded. Skylar walked in slowly. White button-up shirt, black pencil skirt, no skin, no cleavage, no thigh slits. But her back was still straight, her eyes still deep, and her lips, still the kind that made me swallow if I stared too long. She stood before me for a few seconds, then bowed her head slightly. I didn't come to beg for anything, she said quietly. I just wanted to invite you, one last time. I didn't speak. She placed an envelope on my desk. Inside was a formal letter, an honorary guest speaker invitation for an orientation session in the social work department. I looked at her. Her eyes shimmered, not with performance, but something rawer. She drew in a deep breath, holding back something deeper than tears. I want them to hear the real story. No fluff. No filters. I want them to know that without you, I wouldn't exist. I remained silent. She glanced down, fidgeted slightly, then let her eyes drift to my lap. I was still in my wheelchair, but I wore fitted dress pants that day. She bit her lower lip, barely, and turned her face away. There'll be a tea reception after. No filming. No live streams. As she turned to leave, her fingers brushed my desk. By chance, or instinct, they grazed my wrist, right where the faded scar still lingered from a failed physical therapy attempt. Her skin was soft, warm, familiar, then she was gone. But her scent lingered in the air. I attended the orientation, not because of the invitation, but because I needed to see. What would Skylar, once a girl who used her body for attention, use now to teach? She stood at the podium in a fitted turtleneck sweater, not revealing, but every curve still visible. Her lesson wasn't from textbooks, it was memory, it was confession. There was someone who raised me with only one working arm, someone who watched me twist and bend on the internet without saying a word. Just quietly typed behind a screen to bring back the truth. I once discarded him. Now I want to spend my entire career reminding the world, no one is a burden unless we throw them away. The room went silent. Some students cried. Even professors wiped their eyes. I just smiled. After class, we sat together on a bench in the campus garden. The wind teased her hair across her shoulders, lifting a few strands to reveal her pale neck. She asked, "If I weren't your sister, would you have loved me?" The question hit me like a wave straight to the heart. I turned away. I never knew what to do with those feelings, watching you grow up, so beautiful, and me, trapped in a broken body. I never dared to think, wasn't allowed to think. She smiled sadly, leaning closer, her fingers brushing under my chin. I know, but not all love has to become something. Some love, we just keep, so we can keep going. I held her hand, not to guide her, not to comfort her, not to wipe away tears, but to hold just once a memory that had almost rotted away. One last time, gently and human. That night I opened my podcast, and I spoke. When someone who once made you bleed returns and lays their hand gently on that same wound, forgiveness is no longer a question of morality. It becomes a reflex for anyone who still wants to live and love and remember and continue. For the first time, Skylar shared my podcast. No caption, no tags, just one emoji. Then another. People didn't get it, but I did. And that was enough. I never planned on going back to the old house. Never wanted to see those wooden hallways again, where Skylar used to walk barefoot in the mornings, hair a tangled mess, wearing nothing but a loose t-shirt barely covering her chest and tiny sleep shorts, dragging her feet lazily but seductively, like each step was a whisper daring you to look. I had promised myself, all of that was to be erased with that cursed birthday night. But then her message came, just one line. "Grandma's fading fast. She only asks for you." I couldn't ignore it. I returned. Late autumn. Pennsylvania cloaked in fog. The wooden house looked smaller than I remembered. The same hinges on the door, the ones I'd replaced myself. The doorknob still cold. The faint scent of lavender still hanging in the air. I pushed open the door. Skylar answered. She wore a long white dress. Simple, modest, yet impossible to look away from. High neckline, no cleavage, no legs showing. But it hugged her. Every curve from chest to waist. Her hair fell straight, untouched. No blush, no lipstick. Just pale pink lips and eyes, deep and trembling. "You came back." She reached out to touch my shoulder, then hesitated. I nodded, wheeled past her, light as a breath. Upstairs smelled of Chinese medicine, pain balms, warm oils. Grandma lay there, her eyes milky and tired, but they lit up when she saw me. "Mason, you came home." I took her frail hand, kissed it gently. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was filled with smoke. Skylar stood beside the bed, her hand covering mine from behind. Her fingers were cold. She rested her forehead on my shoulder and whispered, "I'm sorry for all that I took from you." I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. Both of us had our heads bowed in the same pain, in the same reckoning. 3 days later, Grandma passed. The funeral was quiet. Skylar wore a sleek black silk dress, not revealing, not excessive, just beautiful and aching. Every step she took seemed to measure a memory. I stayed beside her, my wheelchair silent next to her long black hem. But her eyes, they never left me, as if afraid I'd disappear again. After the service, I returned to the house one last time. The kitchen, where she once tiptoed in a low-cut sleep dress, secretly biting into cookies and giggling, was now quiet and cold. Skylar set a wooden box in front of me. Inside were old photos. Me on crutches, her snuggled beside me under a wool blanket, us celebrating a broke birthday with peanut butter sandwiches. At the very corner, a photo I had secretly taken of her at 14, wearing that first blue dress, hair curled for the first time, eyes wide with wonder. A picture I printed and hid away because it was too beautiful to share. Skylar pulled it out and looked at me. How long have you kept this? Since the day you stopped seeing me as your brother. She placed the photo down, met my eyes. Did you ever think of me as something else? I held my breath. What do you mean? I asked, as if I didn't understand. She smiled, eyes sparkling like wind through half-open curtains. I mean, did you ever love me in a way you shouldn't have? I didn't answer. She stepped closer, sat beside me. Her dress brushed my knee, her hand landed on my thigh, right over the old scar I never wanted anyone to see. I know, she whispered. I saw it in your eyes. But I wasn't angry, because there were times I looked at you not like a brother either. I turned my face away. My heart thudded like wheelchair wheels on gravel. She didn't kiss me, didn't hug me. She just tilted her head, whispered. But we know too well where the lines are. That's why I want to keep you in a way that lasts longer. Skylar began writing a book, titled I Was Ashamed of My Brother, and I Was Wrong. I helped edit it. I released the final podcast of my series, My Sister and a Love Without a Name. No one truly understood it. Only those who've ever loved in silence, who've craved a touch more than sex, would know this truth. Not every desire needs to be fulfilled in flesh to be real. A month later, I rode on stage to accept the Humanitarian Tech Innovation Award. Skylar sat in the front row, wearing a long black dress, eyes red, smiling. When I came down backstage, she walked up, said nothing, just placed her hand on my neck, pulled me close, touched her forehead to mine, and her lips hovered near mine, so close we could have kissed if we were foolish, but we didn't. Because real love, sometimes, doesn't touch. It just wants to be seen, to be known, to be remembered, and not forgotten.